Well, I think that everybody is shocked that Canada is going through that right now. But at the same time, I think that just to give a bit of context to everyone here, we're the closest friend and the best ally of the United States, period. The best neighbor they could ever have, 5,000 kilometers of undefended border, a very secure and strong border. And we are the biggest client of the United States. We buy from the US more than China, Japan, France, and the UK combined. There are millions of jobs in the US and, of course, in Canada that are linked. We are extremely integrated in terms of our own economy. And we provide a lot of energy to the US. Oil and gas, fertilizers, so potash, uranium for their nuclear sites, hydroelectricity, and, of course, everything linked to uranium. So I've said uranium, potash, and hydroelectricity and oil and gas. So ultimately, there is an interdependency between the US and Canada. But when we hear 25% tariffs, it's an existential threat, because this would account on hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada being lost and higher unemployment rate coming from our best friend and best ally. So we have experience dealing with President Trump. We went through the renegotiation of NAFTA, which is called the USMCA. What we know is when President Trump talks, you have to listen, and you have to make sure that you are abiding by what he's saying, in the sense that you have to take him seriously. But what President Trump respects is strength. So from the moment that we were imposed 25% tariffs based on the fact that there was a fentanyl crisis in the US coming from Canada, let's go back on facts, 1% of fentanyl in the US comes from Canada, 1% of illegal migrants in the US come from Canada. So we had a very strong border plan. We made sure to engage with the Trump administration. We presented how we would make sure that the border would be secure. We had many allies in the Republican Party, many allies, of course, with the Democrats. And ultimately, what made a big, big change is when we said, you know what? $155 billion worth of tariffs against the U.S. And you saw the U.S. markets tanking, and you saw also potentially the price of gas going up. So my point to all of you is we're the canary in the coal mine. If the U.S. administration is doing that to Canada, you're next. And we need to work together on this. And what I saw when it comes to, you were talking about the rise of populism, and I think our people in Canada reacted so strongly to the fact that we were so strong. My party used to be 25% back in the polls. Within a week, we're nearly at par with the opposition. Because Canadians are afraid, are anxious, and love the fact that we're standing strong.
So, and Minister, could I ask you,
yes.
is your assumption that in 30 days the issue will have disappeared, or do you think in 30 days there'll be another demand with the same threat? After all, it is just a sort of stay of execution at the moment.
So we're dealing with 3 executive orders. You mentioned the first one being linked to fentanyl and the border, and it's us and Mexico. You've mentioned also the one on aluminum and steel. And this is about great American steel workers. This is about great Canadian steel workers. We're linked. We're integrated. If they put tariffs on them, on our exports, basically, they're affecting jobs in the U.S. Mm-hmm. And we have Chinese, tariffs on China. We don't accept any form of dumping from China neither. So, I think that so that's the second executive order. And the third one is the April 1st delay on the executive order that was signed on Inauguration Day, which is about studying the entire trade relationship the U.S. has with every single trade partner. There are 500 public servants in Washington working on this right now.
And what do you need other countries to do? You're sitting in the heart of Europe today.
Yeah.
What is it that you need the EU to do?
We need to coordinate.
Okay.
We presented already a first list of $30 billion worth of tariffs. We need to make sure that we work together, because ultimately none of us will change the perception of President Trump. The only people in the world that will make sure that tariffs are not imposed are American people themselves. And when they understand that this is affecting the gas, at the pump, or when they understand that it's ultimately much more costly at the grocery store, they'll say enough. So that's why we need to work together to make sure ultimately that I think our arguments prevail.
Thank you so much, Minister.